the party of freedom, the party of like less insertion in our lives. This is the thing, right? There is an idea coming out that perhaps National is going to ban cell phones in schools.
Oh, only the big issues.
But there will be a lot of people who would support this. My kind of concern comes back to this thing about who are you? What do you stand for? What have you said? This is the party that wants less government. This is the party that doesn't want to get in your way. This is the party that, and we haven't really covered this off, but Luxon thinks, conversations around gender and sexuality should be happening at home, should be giving the parents the ability to make these decisions. So to come out and potentially saying, they haven't said it yet, but to hint at saying they're going to ban cell phones in schools is kind of the opposite of all of that. And it comes back to this thing we've talked about a lot tonight. There's a bit of a theme here that when they want to oppress, when they want to take away rights, it's okay. But when the left want to do it, it's unacceptable and undemocratic. I can disagree with you, but if you're consistent, I can respect that we have a disagreement. If you're inconsistent or hypocritical, I neither respect you or can have any part of you. And this seems to be hypocritical from the party that doesn't want government telling parents what they should do. Now they're going to tell parents your kids can't have cell phones in schools. We'll play it, shall we? And this is the one, sorry, I referenced the wrong thing earlier, Chewy, where I'm not the person to tease people or mock people for getting their words wrong. I fumble every word every single night of the week. But to not be able to spell the word cat is a bit concerning.
Before you play it, I'm just going to crystal ball this a little bit.
Okay.
Is this a thought through policy, or is this Luxon shooting from the hip again?
Well, I think it's shooting from the hip because it's not a policy. There's not an announcement, but there is certainly a hint towards, well, you might have to stay tuned because something's coming about that.
Okay.
But we'll play it and you'll see.
Tēnā tātou katoa. Good evening. National leader Christopher Luxon is not ruling out banning mobile phones in schools. He teased the policy during a school visit in Hamilton,
where he also appeared to stumble on one very simple question: how to spell cat. Here's political editor Tina Walsh.
Teaching the basics brilliantly.
I actually almost feel sorry for him. Like, honestly, because we've all done it. We've all said something silly and said it backwards or whatever, but
never done it.
But it couldn't happen.
Not relatable.
But it couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
National's policy put into practice.
Car. C-A-R for car.
Christopher Luxon may need to brush up on his own basics, though.
Can. K-A-N. Very good.
Can is spelt with a C.
What's K-A-T? Cat. I'm just checking to make sure you look very smart. I'm just making sure.
One from three.
National education policy.
Hey, how come you've gone so quiet all of a sudden?
Christopher Luxon's classroom goal is simple.
They're teaching basics brilliantly to our kids.
Reading, writing, maths, and
not to our
hour
adults,
each.
apparently.
But there's another problem plaguing schools.
So on mobile phones, what's the deal here with kids? Like, do they have to? Do you have a ban?
Technology troubles.
Because, phones are a distraction, big distraction, and particularly with the different things you can do with a phone these days.
2 weeks ago, the UN called for a global ban of smartphones in schools. Luxon seems to quite like that.
And we are very focused on making sure we lift academic achievement in New Zealand. And when I talk to principals, but also to parents, they do say that mobile phones are a distraction. So we may have more to say about that very shortly. Watch this space.
Across the ditch, New South Wales has already banned phones in primary schools and will ban them in high schools from term 4 this year.
Watch this space. We have something to say about it very shortly, but I have real sympathy for parents and principals who are saying it is difficult in schools.
Part of his education picture.
We are very serious in government about prioritising education because it's the thing that gets kids from one set of circumstances to another set of circumstances.
Searching for answers to the country's tough academic challenges.
What's K-A-T?
And the correct answers to the simple ones too.
Kia ora, Jenna. So is it likely that National could actually ban phones in schools?
Yes, it sounds like Christopher Luxon has let the misspelled cat out of the bag on this one. I'm hearing that a policy could be announced as soon as tomorrow, though the party is not confirming anything. This is good retail politics. Parents think this is a major problem. There are a multitude of studies showing that these things are a distraction, exacerbated by the multitude of things that you can do on them. At the moment, schools are choosing school by school what to do about phones. The government is leaving them to it. And I've just received a very strongly worded statement through from the Education Minister on this. She says that introducing a government-ordered ban is unnecessary and shows a lack of understanding of how schools operate in New Zealand, going on to say introducing a ban of this kind would undermine schools who are best placed to make this decision, as it needs to be made on a case-by-case basis to take into account learners who may need phones for accessibility reasons. So, solid fail grade from the Education Minister on this potential policy.
Political Editor General.
So there you go. And look, I'll be honest with you. I've got a 14-year-old in her first year of secondary school and a 17-year-old in her last. I don't hate the idea of less phone usage at school. So I'll make this really clear. That idea I don't hate. My problem is still the party that says on some level stay out of parental decisions being the party to do this. And look, there are people who are agreeing with it. Let's get real. Phones in schools are a distraction. How do I know? Teachers and the nightmare stories. There was another one here from Brent. As a teacher, I'm keen on cell phone bans at schools, but I think schools should implement themselves rather than government mandating. NZ Doom says it plays to the darn kids these days attitude, leaves parents and schools to sort out the how to and gives them another day to resit. But the other thing is there are things that happen in classrooms, and perhaps that's what the Education Minister is talking about. I know my kids do it, where actually their timetables are on their phones. They do things inside the class to do with education on their phones. So it's not quite as simple as just a straight ban, because there are some things that the kids in secondary schools use their phones for inside the education sector as well. It's sort of begun, I think, because the education sector went, we can't get rid of these things, we better intertwine them. And they sort of have. So I don't hate the idea of less phones in schools, less usage of phones in schools. I do have a problem with what feels hypocritical for the parties of freedom to be at the parties to say, yeah, we're gonna mandate. We know how much National hates the word mandate that in schools, and also then the party that you're going to have to partner with further to the right, who claims to be the Libertarian Party, how the fuck are they going to vote for this? Unless that's hypocrisy as well, Chewy.
Yeah, look, as someone that sells cell phones, this is attacking my bread and butter. But no, look, it's we're in the run-up to a really important election. By Nationals' take, the entire country is on the bones of its ass, an inch away from disaster. And during a photo op in a school, he's talking about banning cell phones. Is it a problem that the government needs to get involved in? No. Is this something that schools are quite capable of doing on their own? Yes. Because if schools can mandate a uniform, a hairstyle, what sort of shoes to wear, like so much is policed at school just based on the school's individual approach to things.
I think
having the government come in roughshod and go, oh, we're just banning cell phones with absolutely no consideration of any of the angles. Watch this space, though. We're going to fucking thrash something out because I've said something in front of a camera.
I think we have to be careful, though, and this is only because I believe in consistency, is that, people group X, right? In this instance, we're talking about schools. If something needs to be done and they refuse to do it, then you do want governments to come in and sort it out for them. If this is a serious problem, as the World Health Authority is saying, or the UN is saying, whichever one it was, and it would be better for them not to be in there, and we leave it up to schools and they don't do it, then what? I think as someone who sits where I sit in politics, I'm like, if the people can't look after themselves, whether they choose not to or they can't, then that's sort of the role of government. So I'm treading carefully here because I don't want to make it seem like I'm anti this idea of I mean, I've got, like I said, I've got a 14-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I can see what phones do. I can see the distraction that they are, right? I'm just, reiterating the idea of the party that wants government out of family decisions, making a decision that would be sweeping and massive to a lot of families. That's the thing I'm looking at right here.
Yeah, it seems like, as I said, as soon as we talk about what this story was, I was like, this will be Luxon shooting from the hip again, with and like months out from the election, but we don't want shoot from the hip.
Yeah,
we want actual considered policy on stuff that actually matters, and this misses on at least two of those things.
Yeah,
like it's they seem to think that teachers aren't capable of doing this, and schools aren't capable of doing this. Schools aren't capable of teaching sex education correctly, but parents are, which is something that has never been true. I was talking to some friends of mine about this. This is bringing in the other issue of Nicola Willis and Luxon both saying that the only people that should be able to teach sexual health stuff is parents, and it should be out of the schools because it's just reading, writing, and arithmetic. I asked the question, if you relied on your parents to tell you stuff about sex and reproduction and being safe and all of that sort of stuff, when would you have learned it?
Yeah.
And
27.
do you know what the overwhelming answer? I asked about 15 different people over the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And the overwhelming answer was too late.
Yeah.
That's when I would have learned it. Too late. It's the schools have been covering this off perfectly well for decades. And again, it just seems to be national shooting from the hip, making these broad generalizations that parents are the only ones that can do it, or they're the only ones that can police the schools and that sort of thing. It's just nonsense. I'm not debating that phones can be a distraction. I'm not debating that can be bullying issues with phones and that sort of thing, but it's just focusing on the negative rather than the utility that they have as well.
I agree with you.
People to use the tools of the world that they exist in.
So there's the gap, right? Because schools aren't doing that. So schools aren't teaching the skills and to how to use them. But look, the other thing is,
but they can't, because it's just got to be reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing.
People laugh about a course like media studies, right? What an airy theory subject that is. Well, media studies can cover critical thought with the media, analyzing news sources that are given to you, how people can twist a narrative. All of this is really important stuff, but it just gets written off. And it could be the same with digital safety.